This is the Mazz and Bads Show with Brandon Marazzo and Charlie Baduini.
What's going on, folks, and welcome into the Mazz and Bads Show. Though, unfortunately, today we're missing Mazz. He's got some things going on back home that he had to take care of this week. Don't worry, he'll be back next week, back to a normal schedule. But today we're throwing it back a little bit to the WMSC days where Mazz would often miss some shows, and we're doing a little Ant and Charlie in the midday. Ant, how are we doing today?
We're doing good, Charlie. How you doing today? I know it's about to be playoff weekend. It's the playoff, 5-day stretch we're getting to football? Like
It's
college football 2 days.
Football is in probably the best spot it can be to start the year right now. You just like you're saying, college football playoff, NFL playoff, all like 5-6 days in a row. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I know tomorrow I'm not going to be in very high spirits because my Ravens are playing. But for the next 4 of those 5 days, I'm going to be excited watching football and not having to worry about a team that I like going on and trying to win a game. So I'll enjoy the other 4 days while the Ravens aren't playing.
So while it's a bit of a triumphant week for some football teams, there's also some losers, of course. But we also had Black Monday, which is the day of the year designated to when teams who, didn't have the season that they wanted to have, did not meet expectations, lost more games than they should have. Those coaches are going to get fired. Those general managers who built the teams are going to get fired. And we saw a few openings open up, more coaches than general managers, but I think more of the talking points surrounding the coaches have been a bit more hot. So we'll start with Gerard Mayo, who was the first coach fired after the season came to a close. He was fired the Sunday night after the Bills lost to the Patriots in Foxborough. Joe Milton was the quarterback. He looked like a lot of fun. But yeah, Patriots who handpicked Gerard Mayo to be Bill Belichick's successor after last season, only give him 1 year. It's tough to be able to say, oh, he, a one and done coach is short-sighted. You don't know what he's going to turn into and how far he can develop a program and a team. But when it comes to Mayo, I'm not saying he might have been a great coach down the line somewhere, but I can't really blame the Patriots for firing him because there were some games this year where they just didn't either show up or just wouldn't play hard, and that of course falls on the head coach.
Yeah, and I think Gerard Mayo, like the intention of bringing him in was good. Get a former player's perspective, a guy who was a great defensive guy for you, won a couple of Super Bowls, has this good resume, and has his reputation of being a great player's coach when he was a position coach after he retired from football. So I didn't hate the idea when it first got announced. I know a lot of Patriots fans were hoping, you had Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn, all these other guys, Byron Leftwich, all these different coaching candidates that you could have gone with. But this year, you knew the Patriots weren't going to be competitive this year, right? You had a rookie quarterback. It was all blown up. No offensive weapons. Offensive line was in shambles. Like, this team, realistically, this year had no chance of winning anything. And it showed. And I think Gerard Mayo, his tactics were very old school. If you heard reports from the Patriots locker room, a lot of old-fashioned, hold guys accountable. We're gonna discipline you guys, make you run, do all this stuff. And again, at the end of the day, these are full-grown men who are getting very large contracts, and they feel like if they feel like you're not motivated to the point that they need to be motivated, and they're going to check out on you, and they're not going to play as hard for you. I think by week 6, week 7, you could tell that with the Patriots weren't going to bat for Gerard Mayo. And as a coach, when you lose a locker room in your first season midway through, that's enough for a front office to say, all right, I think we got to pull the plug on this one. I think for the Patriots, it's a great decision because think about it. You have Mike Vrabel just sitting around waiting, a former Patriot linebacker, legend, under Belichick, was a great head coach in Tennessee, and Tennessee wrongfully firing him a year ago. It just makes the most sense. I think the Patriots know that, and that's why they cut bait with Gerard Mayo.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other aspect to that is that, last Thursday before the last game of the season, the last weekend, the Jets did bring in Mike Vrabel to, they brought him into the facility. He did an in-person interview for the head coaching gig. And I think that part of that, I'm sure he did want to see what was going on with the Jets. It's a head coach opening. You're never going to turn down a job interview just because, for whatever reason. But I think that was kind of calculated and pushing the screws a little bit into the Krafts and the Patriots and saying, hey, if you don't take a serious look at me for your head coaching position, I'll just come over here to one of your biggest rivals and one of your division rivals. So I don't know. As a Jets fan, I'm pretty disappointed because it seems almost like a lock at this point for Vrabel to become the Patriots coach. Of all the coaches out on the market right now, he is option number one for just about every team, I would imagine.
I think he definitely is one of the premier options, but I think Aaron Glenn is far and away the top option right now for what he is doing in Detroit right now. Think about it. You have 9 or 10 starters out on the defense, and I think like 3 or 4 backups who are out now. Like, they are down to their practice squad guys on that defense, and they almost shut down the Vikings for an entire 4 quarters. Held them to 3 red zone stops. For the fact that Aaron Glenn is doing what he's doing with the personnel he has, I think right now he's shooting up that head coaching leaderboard. He'll be somewhere next year, whether it be Chicago, Jacksonville, Detroit, Jets. I think he's the premier option in my opinion.
I don't disagree with you that Aaron Glenn's one of the top options out there. I think Vrabel's experience is what gives him the edge in that department. I think when it comes to these head coaching candidacies, Vrabel's done it before and he's had success doing it before. Not saying Glenn's not going to have success. I would be pretty ecstatic if the Jets were able to hire him as head coach. I think it's going to come down to the Jets and the Saints as the 2 spots for him, both franchises that he played for. I think he'd be interested in doing a little homecoming as a former player to either one of those organizations. But
can I ask you a question, Charlie, real quick?
Yeah.
Like, after the whole experience with Saleh, having a defensive-minded head coach who was one of the leading coach candidates a few years back, does part of you a little nervous about bringing in a guy like Aaron Glenn with the same sort of background and the same sort of success coming in?
No, not necessarily, because I've seen this discussion a lot in Jets spaces when it comes to should they be looking to hire an offensive guy and should they be looking to stay away from defensive guys because of Robert Saleh? And you can of course look at Robert Saleh's tenure as the head coach of the Jets and say, oh, he's a defensive guy and he was able to turn things around, but could never get the offensive side of the ball right, and that's what really bit him in the end. Then you go back to the previous head coach, Adam Gase. He was supposed to be an offensive guru, as people like to say back when he was the coach of the Jets. He was supposed to be the guy that was coaching where football was going, according to Christopher Johnson. But if you look at the Jets' track record of head coaches, and this is just for them specifically, they've had their best success under defensive guys. Rex Ryan, the best success of the 21st century was under him. Before that, Eric Mangini, they made some playoff runs under him. He was the defensive coordinator for the Patriots. Herm Edwards. I don't remember exactly where he was before he was at the Jets, but defensive background
Parcells
guy.
Too.
Bill Parcells. The list goes on and on. So no, I'm not really. I'm not opposed to an offensive guy. I'm not opposed to a defensive guy. I just want someone who's going to come in here and establish a culture and win football games. I don't care what side of the football his background comes from.
Yeah, people forget, like, the head coaching position, as much as we, put so much stock into it, they really have no impact on game plans, and like they can suggest things, but really they're there to manage the actual game, call timeouts, challenges, keep the locker room, like steady and moving forward. Like, that's their responsibilities. And I think for a lot of these position, like, or offense, defensive minded guys, they want to still be in charge of that area of their respective teams. But like, there's so many other things that go into it, and you have to find a guy who can, put his ego to the side to say, and let other people, take over that aspect. I think that's what Kyle Shanahan does perfectly up in San Francisco, right? He's one of the best offensive minds, and he still draws up a majority of the plays. Same thing with Matt LaFleur. These guys draw up great plays, but they also realize that that's only a fraction of their job. Like, as a head coach, they need to be the head coach of the football team as well.
Sean McVay falls under that tree as well.
Andy Reid's probably the best example of that.
Yeah. I mean, all these guys are able to figure out where to draw the line of, okay, where do I need to be hands on and where do I need to be hands off? And yeah, those 4 guys we just mentioned all have found that perfect balance, and that's what all these teams with openings are looking for.
Yeah. I think
So
that's the way football should be coached, in my opinion. I don't think a head coach
absolutely.
should just be just the head coach and have no impact on any of the game plans. John Harbaugh. But the rest of the other things, like I feel like, you need to have a knowledge on both areas if you want to be a very successful head coach.
Yeah, for sure. So the next opening that popped up on Monday morning was Doug Peterson of the Jaguars. He was let go after, I think it was his third year as the coach of the Jags, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah,
After
year
Urban
3
Meyer.
after Urban Meyer. The questionable part was they were going to fire the coach. That was kind of obvious. The question was, were they going to clean house entirely? Were they going to get rid of general manager Trent Baalke, the guy who passed on Aiden Hutchinson for Trayvon Walker first overall? No disrespect to Trayvon Walker. He had a nice double-digit sack season this year, but Hutchinson's just a bit more of a franchise player, game record kind of guy, even though he's been banged up this year. So Trent Baalke's going to have some input in the hiring of the new coach in Jacksonville. This is going to be his third head coach. If and we were joking about before the pod started about how Shad Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, in an interview after firing Peterson, was on Zoom next to Baalke, and he said he would not. I'm paraphrasing. He would not hesitate to fire Baalke if it meant bringing in a specific head coach candidate that wanted a different vision in the front office. I don't know. It seems to me that this is a really weird. It almost, I want to say the hit rate when it comes to marrying an incumbent GM or incumbent coach with hiring a new GM or a new head coach, it never seems to end well. Never.
Yeah, I think the Doug Peterson experiment was looking good for a while in Jacksonville. Like you saw
After year 1, it looked
after
great.
Year 1, yeah. Like you saw Trevor's improved leaps and bounds under Doug than he did under Urban Meyer. And you could just tell the culture was getting better. They made the playoffs. They had that huge comeback win against the Chargers. Was that 2 years ago now? Like it was looking great, and it looked like Doug Peterson had struck gold in Jacksonville. He was putting Philly behind him, and then I don't know really what's gone wrong in Jacksonville over these last few years. Injuries have definitely played a huge part. I mean, like your whole receiving core going down, and you had underperforming contracts. Calvin Ridley was, atrocious contract for them when they brought him in. It just seemed like, a lot of things just kind of went wrong with Doug Peterson. And I'm not saying Doug Peterson's a bad head coach. I think he's one of the great head coaches in our game. I just think that Jacksonville is just such a dysfunctional franchise, and they just have so many different bad contracts. I think Baalke should have been the one that fired, in my personal opinion. I think Doug Peterson should have been the one that was kept for another year to try to see what he can do, and then you cut bait with Baalke because he's frankly done a terrible job as a GM of the Jaguars over these last few years. Like you said, Trayvon Walker being drafted first overall, despite having a great season. Aiden Hutchinson is one of the best edge rushers in the game when he's healthy. And there's actually a report saying he might be back in time for the Super Bowl if the Lions do make it.
My Lord.
That's something that should be noted if you're a Lions fan. But Jacksonville, I mean, they don't know how to really construct a good football team. And they did it 1 year. They had that 1 year where they were almost Super Bowl appearance. But I think that sort of came like a fluke. Like they had a couple big picks that like they just, you can't miss on Jalen Ramsey. You're not going to miss on Calais Campbell. Like you're not going to miss on those guys. The Calais Campbell is a free agent. But like that's what Jacksonville needs. They need to find a young core, and they just need to draft the right players. Brian Thomas, I think he's going to be one of the best receivers in the game moving forward. I think he'll be a number one option for years to come. And if Jacksonville could just figure out the protection for Trevor, because Trevor's getting knocked around this year, a couple of concussions. This is Trevor's last year coming. If Trevor does not improve to the level that the Jaguars would like to see, if he is not having an efficient season, that the Jaguars are not winning football games, Trevor Lawrence is gone. And as much as it sucks to see, because he's a great quarterback in college, and we were heralding him as the next Andrew Luck, it's not going to work out if he's not going to be winning games, and he's not going to be able to extend the ball down the field.
Which is unfortunate because I do think he still has some untapped potential there. Doug Peterson, I'm with you. I think he is a really good, solid head coach in this league. I don't know if he got everything he could out of Trevor Lawrence in the years they were together. I think if you're the Jaguars right now, this is one of those teams that, you're looking at, you want to hire an offensive guy to try and continue to work with Lawrence and get the most out of him that they can, because they just gave him that monster contract. You know what I mean? even if he does play terrible next year, I don't know exactly the numbers on it and the outs and the guaranteed money. Like, could they cut him after next year? Would they have to find a trade partner to take on that money? Who knows? But this feels like one of the destinations for a Ben Johnson.
I'll look up the contract right now, Charlie, while you're talking.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you're Shad Khan and Trent Baalke, your first call is to Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, and I believe the Jaguars are actually one of the teams that he did accept an interview for, because Ben Johnson is so picky with his openings. He said no to the Jets, and he said yes to the Patriots, Raiders, Bears, and Jaguars. And I think the Bears and the Jaguars are those two spots where they got young quarterbacks in place, they got cap space and draft picks to work with. And there's something moldable here. It's like you got a fresh jar of Play-Doh that you can work with.
So I actually pulled up his contract right here. He's actually getting paid very cheaply these next few years. He's getting paid.
Oh, really?
$2 million coming up in 2025 as base salary, $2 million in 2026. Then you got $6 million in 2027 and $11 million in 2028, and then the big numbers come at the end. This is a very big backloaded contract. $50 million in 2029 and $53 million in 2030.
That's very similar to Justin Herbert's contract. I was looking at that the other day.
With a cap hit of, so it's cap hit of $17 million, $24 million, $35 million, $47 million, and then you got $78.5 million in 2029 as a cap hit.
Oh my goodness.
70. Yeah, no one's gonna want to take that.
Yeah.
Who would want that?
Trevor Lawrence isn't going anywhere. That's what that says to me. I'll be real with you.
Wow, that's like we talk about Deshaun Watson's contract being a disaster. That could be a disaster. At least Trevor's decent, but like it doesn't look like they're winning. At least
on a weekly basis, at least Trevor Lawrence is like a top like 16 to 12 quarterback. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
He can get you like any given Sunday. He's giving you a 12 to 20 performance quarterback play. You know what I mean? Like
once
Watson,
in a while he'll put up a great
10.
day, but like,
yeah. But is he worth the gigantic, 70, Joe Burrow size,
70,
Justin Herbert size extension? Yeah, that might have been a little premature.
That's the problem, right? Like I feel like so many quarterbacks. I think now the NFL's finally kind of learned its lesson after the Daniel Jones deal, and now with Trevor, and now with Sean Watson. It's like you got to make sure these guys are capable of taking that next step. I mean, Sean Watson at least was an elite quarterback when they did sign him to that extension, but he was off for a year and all those legal troubles and whatever. But you got to know, like a Daniel Jones or a Trevor Lawrence, you got to know that these guys are going to develop into the quarterbacks that you think they are going to be. Because when you're just giving these lucrative extensions off of maybes, like, oh, this guy could be the next guy. Like, to me, that I feel like you're giving them the incentive to sort of just, oh, I don't need to be the best to get to that point. I already have the money now. Like, once those guys have attained like the best parts of them, then you can extend them to as much as you want, because you know that they can reach that elite level year in and year out.
Speaking of Deshaun, did you see he re-ruptured his Achilles?
What was he doing?
He said he rolled his ankle in Miami. That's what was in the statement from the Browns. He rolled his ankle when he was in Miami, and he came back for his physical with the Browns, and it was re-ruptured.
That to me, I'm looking. I guess I'm having like this. To me, that just sounds like
he was on a boat or something.
Either that, or the Browns don't want to play him again next year, and they're giving him the phantom injury, like the Yankees. Like the Yankees did for my baseball fans out there, like the Yankees did with Jacoby Ellsbury a few years ago. What they're going to try to probably do with DJ LeMahieu this year. Oh, just sit out, take your money, just don't play for us. Because every week we trot you out there, it's just not a fun day whenever we have to trot you out there and look at the corpse of yourself. It's just not fun. So maybe he actually did rupture his Achilles. So I don't know. I'm just speculating. I'm just conspiracy theorying, tinfoil hatting right now. Don't listen to what I say. I'm stupid.
I mean, you could totally have a point here, and it could be something that's going down behind the scenes that we don't know about. I mean, the Browns now have the second pick in the draft, so could be going quarterback there. We'll see what happens. But there, Cam Ward, Shadur could be there. Who knows? Maybe Drew Aller declares. Who knows?
Speaking of which, Tennessee getting the number 1 overall pick, huh?
Yeah. Do they go quarterback there? I don't know, man. When you have the first overall pick in this draft, it just doesn't seem like it seems like a waste to burn it on a quarterback that if this was any other draft class, these guys wouldn't be going until the back half of the first round at least.
For Tennessee, right? I think the main thing is like the roster itself is very good. I know they got the number one overall pick and they stunk and whatever. Defense was one of the best in their past defense. I think was top 2 in the league. Like they have a great secondary. They have a great pass rush. And they got a 1,000-yard a year out of Tony Pollard, who's still chugging away. They have a very older receiving core. I think you got to bring in younger weapons there. The only thing that really they need to funnel in is their offensive line and their quarterback. And I get that they're the number one overall pick. I think you do draft a quarterback, Charlie. Like, what else are you going to get this number one overall pick and the chance to really reset your franchise? Like, Shedeur, as much as we clown him for some of the stuff that he does, he's a very good quarterback. He's very good in the pocket. He's able to improvise. He's a great spiral. He has good ball placement. He could throw outside the numbers. He could throw downfield. And he's been coached by a lot of the great quarterbacks over the years. Like, he's got these connections to some of the great guys, so he's learned under some of the best. I think you pulled the trigger if you're Tennessee. Like, Will Levis is not the answer. He's terrible. Even with the offensive line being a struggle, he's just not the answer at quarterback. He had a couple of fluke performances a few years ago, and now, he just got the chance to start this year and really didn't do much with it. I think for Tennessee, yeah, you got to draft a quarterback with this first overall pick. Like, that is the one position that's a very big hole right now. And if you can get a nice young upstart guy and you bring in maybe a veteran like a Jacoby Brissett to just start the season off with and then ease Shedeur in mid-season, I think that's your answer.
So let me ask you, is the pick Shedeur or is it Cam Ward?
I think Shedeur.
Yeah.
I just think Shedeur right now is, has the media side on him, right? He's got the narrative. I think he also has, the tools and talents to be a great NFL quarterback. Not to say Cam Ward doesn't. I just think Shedeur has more of a chance to, run an NFL style offense compared to a Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward's got a great arm. There's accuracy issues with Cam Ward too that I'm a little nervous about. I just think Shedeur's got a better ball, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they're like almost, not exactly, but they're almost polar opposite prospects. Like, Shedeur Sanders is more polished. Like you said, he's accurate. He's been coached up by, of course, his dad and other NFL quarterbacks. He just doesn't have the arm talent that a Cam Ward does. He can't throw it as far. And Cam Ward is like I said, almost the opposite. He's a lot more of he's a raw prospect. The arm talent is there, but he needs to be taught and learn everything else. He can't play year one. He needs to sit and learn behind somebody. So if you're at Tennessee and you're looking to get a quarterback who has a better chance of starting day one, you're probably rocking with Shedeur. I like that for them. And the way you describe that with the defense and the run game, it does make a lot more sense for them to be focusing more on a quarterback here at the first overall pick.
And to say, like, if they do draft Travis Hunter, I'm not upset. Like, that guy's one of the best athletes to come into the draft ever. Like, I wouldn't be upset if the Titans want to go that route and then maybe sign a veteran quarterback in free agency because, this year's quarterback free agent class isn't great, but you're gonna have like a Kirk Cousins maybe you could bring in for
Daniel
Jones. Actually, I wouldn't be upset if the Titans want to do 1 year of Daniel Jones. That's not an awful prospect, right? Like, let him just eat games away while if you do get Shedeur, you can have Daniel Jones come in and play after the season and then bring Shedeur in mid-year. Or if you want to draft Travis Hunter, you have Daniel Jones be a stopgap guy before next year, and hopefully you lose enough games where you can draft a very high-ranked quarterback.
So, and what about the Raiders and Antonio Pierce parting ways? And then, of course, the day after, also firing their GM, Tom Telesco. Was that too soon? Was that,
Antonio Pierce is an interesting guy, right? Like, it seemed to me throughout the end of that year, the Raiders didn't give up on him. right? Like they were still focused. They were still
They were
playing
playing
tough
hard.
football.
Yep.
That defense is young and fiery, right? They were playing some good ball towards the end of the season. Aiden O'Connell, like that's just the issue, right? Like when you're starting the year off as your quarterback being Gardner Minshew, like you're not gonna win games. Like you're not gonna get the best out of guys. And I think the reason why Devontae left was because I think he was just sort of done with the whole, losing games. He wanted to be in a situation. He's only getting older. Like he needed to find a situation. I don't think it was an issue with Pierce. Um, I just
It
think
was just like this the team wasn't ready to win. You know what
no,
I
it
mean?
wasn't
So
ready to win.
yeah.
And but on the other end of things, I don't think he's a great head coach, because I think with
Me
those all
neither.
things considered, like if you're a great head coach, you don't win 4 games, right? Like you don't lose 12 games in a season if you're a great head coach and get the first overall pick and are in the top couple of picks. So part of me just maybe you give Pierce one more year. I would have thought, and I think it kind of blindsided him too, because you heard reports earlier in the week that the GM and Art Davis. No, who am I thinking of? Mark Davis.
Al Davis.
Mark Davis. Mark
Mark
Davis. His son.
Davis.
Mark Davis was talking with him, and they were sort of like plotting out what their next steps were going to be after the season. So the fact that they kind of fired him on Black Monday after that game, after those reports came out, it just seemed very.
He did a press conference on Black Monday and then got fired on Tuesday. That's what happened. Which was that's like kind of weird. Like why would it took him an extra day to say, all right, we're gonna fire this guy, and then it took him a day after that to fire the GM. So like how indecisive can you be? You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, the Raiders are a whole different story, man. Like they should be so much better than what they are. Like they have talent. Like they have guys who can win you games. Like when you have one of the best young tight ends in the game right now, like it just seems like they have no direction ever. Like in the last 20 years, when was the last time you looked at the Raiders outside of maybe like 2016? You looked at this team and said they have direction.
I think they were heading in the right direction under Gruden. But things got thrown out of whack with some emails got slipped up and leaked out.
Even then, they weren't. They were only like a 500 team, right? They were only a 10-win team.
They made the playoffs that year,
and they lost to the Bengals, right? And
in the first, on the first, yeah. I don't know. I think they were moving towards the right direction. They would have reached their limit with Derek Carr at some point, but I think things were going to be okay. Although according to all reports we're seeing as of right now, it looks like Tom Brady's going to be really heavily involved in the head coach and GM search. He might have been the one that had the say in the room that said, hey, we need to clean house and we need to bring in 2 guys in here with a unified vision and start things over the right way. We'll see how that goes. I don't think Brady's ever done he has minority ownership in the Raiders, so this will be his first time trying to figure out and navigate through a hiring process like that. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of connections he pulls out of his ass, or my bad, he pulls out to see what he can do for his team.
Well, he does have a major connection who just got a job down in Chapel Hill coaching the Tar Heels, and a lot of those reports are coming out this week that a certain $10 million buyout could be used. Especially when it's your 6-time Super Bowl winning quarterback is now a part owner of a team, and you had all this history together. You think it's not happening, but Charlie, it definitely could happen.
I don't think he would pull. Listen, if Bill wanted to get back into the NFL, I think he would have waited for the interview process to start in like around this time. But he took this job in like early December, right? Was that what it was?
But why else would you put a $10 million buyout in your contract?
I don't know.
Why would you do that?
If he wants to leave if he wants to leave and he can elevate Steve, his son, to the head coaching spot, I don't know.
That could be what he just did for Steve. Maybe I accept this job and formally give Steve the position as defensive coordinator, and then when I leave, Steve becomes head coach.
I think he's got to do 1 year, and then maybe the window opens for him to leave. He's got to do at least one. He's all in on this stuff. I saw him on Twitter. He's posting pictures with a bunch of high schoolers in their locker room. Like That sounded weird, but it's a picture of him and a bunch of recruits. You know what I mean? Like that's what I meant. I think he's really invested in the whole college coaching thing.
Yeah, I something about being an NFL head coach, right? You're not doing those recruiting trips. And think about how old Bill is now. He's 73. Like,
Yeah.
recruiting trips, going around the country, game planning, and making a team, training camp. Like, that's a lot of stuff to do. In the NFL, you're just scouting tape and you're drafting guys, and that's really it, right? And I don't know. I don't know, man. Bill's a character, and we've seen him. I know you personally weren't alive, but your team saw him, do a little backdoor shadiness in the past. So I wouldn't put it past Bill Belichick to do something like that.
I resign as the HC of the UNC
On a napkin.
On a napkin. The one thing that I will say I think does, or I don't know for sure. I would imagine that him being 15 wins short of Don Shula has to be something that's on his mind a lot. It's got to be. That's the one thing that I thought maybe would keep him in the NFL, at least for like 2-3 more seasons. But I don't know, man. Bill's Bill.
The NFL just doesn't want him for some reason.
So there's something weird there. So either Robert Kraft is back channeling some weird stuff about him, or I don't know, or maybe, or maybe owners just don't feel comfortable signing over their franchise to a guy that without Tom Brady hasn't had the best track record. Who knows?
But he'll be back with Tom Brady if he goes to Vegas. There it is.
Not a quarterback.
No. But maybe they can just together go downstairs during the day and help out whoever their young quarterback is going to be.
Aiden O'Connell,
or Cam Ward, or even maybe even Dylan Gabriel. Who knows?
Dylan Gabriel.
Not
where are the
Carson
Raiders
Beck,
picking?
Because Carson Beck's going back to school.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. The Raiders are picking what, 4th or 5th?
They are 4th. I think it's Titans.
4th. Browns,
Giants,
and then the Raiders.
Yeah. We had like 5 4-win teams this year. Crazy.
Or is it? Did the Jaguars beat the Raiders, or was it the other way around? It might be Jaguars 4, Raiders 5. So they're really not even. No, I think Patriots are still 3.
Oh, we said Patriots, and the Giants are 5.
Damn, dude, I don't even remember.
There's so many 4-win teams, man. Like, it's crazy. I can pull up the
I know that the Jets have the 7th pick. That's the only thing I know for sure off the top of my head. We know the Titans have the 1st pick and the Browns have the 2nd pick. But other than that, Tankathon, come on down.
I got the not pulled up yet. It didn't pull up yet. NFL draft order, please. It's Tennessee, Cleveland, Giants, New England, Jacksonville 5, Vegas 6.
So it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Vegas could have a quarterback fall to them there at 6.
How are you a 4-win team and have the 6th pick? That's crazy.
That's how bad the NFL was this year.
So many bad teams this year. Like, we had
really
10
embarrassing
teams
stuff
that were 5 and 12 or worse. That's, oh my god.
Well, that's because you had 4 teams or 5 teams that were 13 wins or better. That's where
was an imbalance.
That trade-off is.
There was an imbalance this year. That's wild.
There were 2 classes, that's for sure. All right. Before we get to the Wildcard Weekend, you want to touch on the CFP semifinals?
Yeah, right. Last night, Notre Dame versus Penn State, 27-24. The Irish getting the W. I was rooting Penn State. I'm gonna be honest. I'm a Penn State guy. My grandmother went there. I had a few family relatives that went there as well. So I was pulling for the Nittany Lions, but I don't know, man. This Marshall's team is starting to play at a level that we've not seen in Notre Dame since Manti Te'o was there. Like, wow. their defense is truly something special. You got like 8 or 9 guys on that defense who are like 5th-year starters. Like, one of the most experienced group on a defensive end like we've ever seen in college football, just based off like, the NIL and extra years and things like that. And then I think Riley Leonard as a quarterback has just improved a lot. I know he didn't play great last night against Penn State with the 2 picks, but his ability to run the football, he reminds me a lot of like a Josh Allen. Like he's big, like he's very wide, and he's not afraid to lower his shoulder when he gets out of that pocket and rolls out. And he was showing that last night. Penn State is one of the most physical teams in college football this season, and they've always been under James Franklin. But Riley Leonard was just taking guys on, and he left the game for a little bit with a head injury, had a concussion towards the end of that first half. And shout out Steve Angeli from Westfield, New Jersey, coming in and playing well in that second quarter and the first part of that third quarter.
Hell yeah.
New Jersey's own, went to Bergen Catholic. Shout out to him. But Riley Leonard came back, and he made the plays towards the end of that game to get them into field goal range, and then Jeter knocking down that 48-yarder to send the Irish to their first championship since 2013. As much as, Notre Dame has been a foil in college football fan sides.
That was a 48-yard field goal?
48 or 42.
For college, that's tough, man. Good for him. I thought it was a lot shorter. Sorry, my bad to interrupt.
At the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Notre Dame, like they got the timely picks. Their defense is phenomenal. Drew Aller, I know a lot of Penn State fans are hoping he doesn't come back next year, but listen, it was one game against a very good defense.
The thing is he has to come back now because Penn State's backup quarterback, who they would have loved to have kept around, the guy's like from Happy Valley, he had to transfer because Drew Aller said, "I'm coming back next year." Now they don't have another quarterback on the roster. And I know people were thinking about maybe if Penn State made the run and had made it to the championship or even won it, Aller might have considered coming out in the draft. But I think at this point, he's going to go back.
He came back. He announced it. What was it, like 2 weeks ago? He's going back to Penn State, and I don't think he was going to be a top 2-round draft pick. He was definitely going to fall either the 3rd or 4th round, in my opinion.
I disagree. I think he was getting some legitimate like top 10 buzz. Like
really?
Not based off of his production, but based off his tools, like his tool set, like his size,
like
his athleticism. Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. I get that aspect, right? I know you want to draft guys who have the tools and like the actual like intangibles and things, but you gotta perform for me to like actually take a chance on you. Like thing with Shedeur, like Shedeur is an efficient quarterback. Like he's had multiple years where he had 40 touchdowns and like less than 5 interceptions. Like to me, I value that at the college game more than, I could throw a ball 60 yards. Right? Like I don't know. Drew Aller, to me,
no, it's fair.
He's
a
good quarterback, and I think he got Penn State this far, right? Like he won a couple of big games against some pretty good teams, like Boise State. That was a tough game, and he was able to pull through. I don't think he was a 1st-round talent. Like, come on, really? Like Shedeur and Cam Ward and all those other guys who were up there, Dylan Gabriel. Even Carson Beck, I'll give you as maybe a low-end 1st-round talent, but like, I would not say Drew Aller is 1st round. No way.
You know who is 1st round and has been so much fun to watch these last few weeks watching the Penn State games is Abdul Carter.
Yeah,
he's going to be a freak at the next level, a freak.
And I also like Tyler Warren. I talked about him 2 weeks ago on the pod.
Yep,
Tyler Warren for Penn State.
Fantastic as well.
Like,
he got a lot of talent.
And that game had a lot of NFL talent. You talk about what's his name, Julian Love, the running back.
Yeah.
For Notre Dame, like, I think in a few years we're gonna look back at this Penn State Notre Dame game, and we're gonna say, oh, there's a lot of names playing in this game that would go on to be NFL caliber talent, because these two teams, even though they went under the radar most of the season, just based on like, because you talk about Ohio State's, Texas's, Georgia's, all these teams who have like premier like NFL talent. These two teams made it to this point in the season because they got a lot of NFL talent across their board. So I will say in a few years we're gonna look back on Notre Dame Penn State as a game that had a lot of NFL talent, and they performed very well, because that was a great game. Honestly, like, as much as Arizona State and Texas was a great game in this postseason, that was the best game of the college football playoff, in my opinion.
Yeah, like as in like a complete football game. Yeah. Like it was just it was back and forth with the interceptions and turnovers. Yeah, that was great. It was great. But I said this to you a little bit before we started the pod. You pushed back a bit. And in my opinion, it seems like the real national championship is going to be played tonight. I feel like Ohio State and Texas, I know you said you think Texas is overrated, but it just seems like both of these rosters have the most talent on it in terms of when you're looking at the whole bracket.
Yeah. I think both these teams, like, they have the advantage in terms of their rosters. You know, they have a little bit more NIL money on both their sides. They were able to bring in premier talent. They use the portal to their advantage. Notre Dame, I think, only has like 5 or 6 portal players on their team, which is crazy to think
Very
about,
impressive.
that they've made it this
Very
far
impressive.
without utilizing the portal the way they have. So,
can I ask you a question real
Yeah.
quick before we get to this one?
Uh-huh.
What are your thoughts on if Notre Dame should be in a conference or not?
I think they should absolutely be in a conference.
Yeah.
I think they're hurting themselves not being in a conference just because they can't get one of those buys now, just because those 4 buys are like left for
conference. Yeah,
champions.
the
Like,
Power Four.
You're playing at a disadvantage now by not being in a conference just because you want to be different. Like, I think they should absolutely be in a conference, whether it be the ACC or the Big Ten. They should be in one of those 2 conferences. I think the ACC, just because it would be a little easier for them to win, just because the ACC, like, outside of Clemson and Miami and Syracuse, like, this year there was really an SMU too. I should have thrown SMU in there as well.
Sure.
Those 4 teams are like the only good teams in their conference. I think Notre Dame could beat all 4 of them pretty handedly. Like, I think it would be a little easier for them to get through. And even despite the early loss in the season in Northern Illinois, they were able to just bust through and just take down whoever they played. And that's one of the perks of having not being in a conference is you can just build your own schedule with teams that you want to play. Like USC, they play every year. Navy and Army, I think they play every year. And
I saw them play. They played Louisville this year. Texas A&M.
Yeah, like they you can make whatever like kind of schedule you want, just because you're not sidelined to those teams. So that's why I think the Notre Dame likes that. But you got to stop playing at a disadvantage. Pick a conference and be in it.
The problem with it is the isn't it that the TV contract is like they have their own personal deal with NBC Sports that broadcast their games, and if they were to go to an ACC or a Big Ten, they would have to, I think, split that revenue with the other teams in the conference.
It makes sense, but like then you should be the team that should be dishing out the most NIL money. If you got your own TV contract, there's no reason with NIL and the way it is right now, Notre Dame should not be getting the best talent every single year out of high school.
And their boosters must be crazy. Like they have to be. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and we kind of forget that Notre Dame is supposed to be like the hated team in college football. Like they were the most hated team for decades. Like from the 70s to like the 2000s, like they were winning national championships. They had their own TV. Like they would always get their games broadcasted. They would always beat up on the best teams in the country. They would win a bunch of like they were the Alabama decades ago. Like they were like
our generation.
They're like the New York Yankees, right? Like we forget the Yankees are like this powerhouse because they haven't won in years. But like we all still kind of like hate them because like they've just done it for so long. So now like we root for them to lose. But now we sort of forget that about Notre Dame. And now that they're back in the national championship, I think a lot of more eyeballs are going to be on this game just because we haven't seen them in this position in 12 years.
Should be a lot of fun to see. I personally think it'll be a Ohio State Notre Dame national championship. We'll see what happens tonight. We'll see if Steve Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers have anything left in the bag to shock Ohio State. But
I do gotta say something real quick while we got a chance. SEC ain't all that, okay?
Not anymore.
It ain't all that, okay? Like SEC's a great conference. They got all these great players, blah blah blah. Don't tell me they're the premier, only best conference in college football. They're not. Okay? Alabama, 4 losses this year. 3 in the regular season, and then they lost to Michigan in the bowl game. They are not the same Alabama as before. Georgia, a couple of losses. Lost to Notre Dame in their one bye week. Like, they didn't make a run at it. And then you had Texas, who's, this is their first year in the SEC. They were a Big 12 school for years, and now they're 1 win away from national championship. I don't count that as an SEC victory.
Yeah, right.
Like from another conference. Like right now, the SEC, in my opinion, stock has gone way down. And I know you're gonna say, "Oh, SMU got blown up by Penn State," blah blah. That just goes to show you the Big Ten might be all that too. I think the Big Ten is on that level with the SEC.
I miss the Pac-12, dude.
I miss it too, but listen, we're in the age of TV contracts.
You're right.
Dictating
You're right.
college football, so we can't have good things anymore.
All good. Who's your pick tonight?
I'm gonna take Ohio State.
Yep.
I think they are going to try to establish the run game early, and then their defense is very good. I think they do play very good defense in their games. Like they held Oregon to, what was it, like 13 points, and Oregon
something.
Oregon looked like they were the best team in the country. Like I think Ohio State's playing on a level now. Like they beat the best team in the country, in my opinion, Oregon, in their last game on New Year's Day, despite all those things that were going on at the Rose Bowl, and then they're playing a Texas team who I've said I just think they're overrated. Their defense is very good, like elite, but I just don't think Quinn Ewers he's okay. He's okay. He's a good quarterback. He's solid, but he's not a guy that really shows up in the biggest games. And I think tonight, when Ohio State, brings that energy and they're gonna come out flying, I think they get the job done and they advance to the national championship.
Yeah, I think Texas's time is coming. As you said, like it appears now that they're going to be the cream of the crop in the SEC. And I think with Arch Manning, he's probably going to be taking the reins next year. I'm sure they got another elite recruiting elite recruiting class. Try to say that 5 times fast. Coming in next year again, and it seems like this might be the year for a team like Ohio State, who is kind of on the decline. Out of their for the past 10 years, they've been up there in the top, very typically the top of the college football, and I think only two national championships in the past 10 years. Is that accurate
for Ohio State?
For Ohio State,
I think it's only just one.
Just one.
It was the Zeke year, and that was it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've even been back.
Didn't they lose to they lost to Bama with Justin Fields in the championship, didn't they?
No, I don't think they made it. Because Bama beat Georgia in the national championship back in 2018. That was 2019. Yeah. That's when Tua checked in. Yeah. Oh, you know what? They might have. That might be the year Mac Jones and it was Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, and all those guys were there. Jalen Waddle. That was a stacked Alabama team, and that they ran into. Like, no one can blame Ohio State for losing that game. That team was just.
Well, I mean, if you look over at the Ohio State, they got Fields. They had Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Smith and Jigba. They had some fantastic talent as well.
Who was the running back? Was that J.K. Dobbins that year?
Or was it Trey Sermon?
I think it was both. Maybe both of them.
Maybe both.
And Alabama had Najee, I think.
Man, dude, that's unreal. Stacked rosters.
Oh my god.
Absolutely ridiculous. But enough college football. And you and I mean, don't get me wrong. I'll sit down and enjoy a college football game, but nothing's beating the thrill of the NFL playoffs.
Yeah, man.
And it's finally time to sit down and watch some of these games. I cannot wait. The first round is always so exciting. There's 2 games on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, 1 Monday. It's going to be a lot of fun. Each one of these matchups. I mean, there's only one that I feel like is chalk, and that's the Buffalo game. But we'll get to that. The rest of them kind of all feel like it's within reach for both teams.
I think that Denver Buffalo game's a lot closer than you're letting on here.
Really?
I think Denver's playing some hot football. I think Denver's defense is top 5 in the NFL. With Pat Surtain and Nick Bonito. Like, those are 2 DPOY candidates on the back half of the ball. And Bo Nix is just looking a lot more polished these last few weeks. I think they're getting some good performances out of Cortland Sutton on the offensive end. Buffalo, I think, is going to win the game. I still think Buffalo wins. I think it's close. Like, I think the point spread in that game is only like 3 or 4.
No, it's closer to 9.5.
What?
If I'm not mistaken.
No
yes.
way. Hold on. Is that
FanDuel, where are you? Now I'm going to DraftKings. Let's see. NFL. Yeah, Denver Broncos 8.5 point underdogs but okay, so this doesn't make any sense to me. The Broncos are 8.5 point underdogs and the Steelers are 9.5. How are the Steelers favored less. Like that's a divisional matchup. It's crazy to me. Crazy.
The Steelers and Ravens, 9.5.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah,
based
Ravens
off
are
of what they've
9.5
done the
point
last
favorites.
4 weeks. Like the Steelers have
I
lost 4
get
in a
that.
row, gotten blown out 3 games, and the Ravens have looked unstoppable in those last 4 games. So it's like,
But
I can
we're
see,
talking about the third time these teams will see each other this season.
and
You
it's
don't
Mike
think it's going
Tomlin
to be
versus John Harbaugh, and the history of the last
Yeah.
like 10 games, like 9-1 for the Steelers. Like, I agree with you. Like as a Ravens fan, I think the Ravens do pull it out, but it's going to be such a low scoring, tough football game. I'm expecting like a 16 to like 9 sort of game, like one of those old. I don't think Lamar's going to play great. I think Lamar's going to have one of those games where he has like a touchdown and a pick, 150 like passing yards, like 50 rushing yards. Like he's going to get bottled up. It's going to be on the Ravens defense to really like hold them. And I think the defense shows up because like they've been playing great. Well, like I looked at a stat the other day. I think it's like on a minimum of 150 snaps, like pass coverage snaps. Both Nate Wiggins and Marlon Humphrey, the 2 quarterbacks of the Ravens, have like the lowest passer rating allowed.
Really.
Yeah, like it's like they've been playing great this season. I just hope that George Pickens is nowhere near on the same side of the field as Brandon Stevens. That's all I'm gonna say. If Brandon Stevens at one point is covering George Pickens, something has gone wrong. We need one of Marlon Humphrey or Nate Wiggins guarding George Pickens at all times, because he cannot be left to Brandon Stevens, because that dude is terrible. One of the worst corners I've ever seen.
And that's really the only real receiving threat the Steelers have. I mean, Pat Freiermuth there is a viable tight end.
Najee's always been great out of the backfield, though, catching passes.
Najee, but I'm talking more as a downfield threat. I mean, George Pickens is really the only real problem the Steelers have. I mean, Mike Williams is a talented player. Say again?
Calvin Austin?
Calvin Austin's been all right. I mean, he's a bit more of a gadget guy, I would call him. Mike Williams has been kind of coming off the ACL from last year. He hasn't really had too much juice this year, either for the Jets or for the Steelers. Yeah, they don't use him as much. But I think, like you said, Ed, that's a pretty solid prediction of like a 16-9, 17-10 low scoring AFC North battle, but involves the Baltimore Ravens advancing.
Mm-hmm.
So we skipped over the first game of the Saturday window, which is, I mean, which is the LA Chargers at the Houston Texans. And I don't know if you've seen this. It's been floating around the internet for the last like week or so. But for our entire lifetime, for the entire lifetime of the Houston Texans, whenever they have a playoff game, home playoff game in the opening wildcard round, they have always played in the 4:00 Saturday window at home, every time without fail.
Yeah, I saw that. I don't know why that is. Like
I don't know. Like there's no like particular reason. It's just how it's worked out. It's really funny.
Yeah, but I know Houston's underdogged here. I'm taking them.
Yeah,
I'm taking Houston. I think they're gonna beat LA. I think Houston right now, like they've been playing, so these last 2 weeks. I mean, the blowout to the Ravens was not great, but they were able to lock up the division pretty early on. So they've had a lot of rest. I think the Chargers, they just added Zeke this past week. They're trying to, formulate a new
bolster that run game. Yeah,
bolster the run game. I think that's one area that Houston's been good at, is stopping the run, and their pass rush has been fantastic. Their front seven's amazing. I think Houston's got like a way there to really hold them and really dominate time of possession. It's going to be really on if Joe Mixon can get things moving against a really good Chargers run defense as well. I think this one's going to be another game where you just don't see a lot of scoring. I think these first couple of games on Saturday, Ravens, Steelers, Chargers, Texans, both of these games are probably, for the average fan, gonna suck. Like you're gonna sit there and be like, there's no scoring. This game's gonna be boring as hell. Like I'm gonna be sitting there. But no, like for football fans, man, like for real football fans, these games are gonna be fun to watch.
I totally agree with you. I cannot wait to watch these games. It's gonna be a blast. I do disagree with you, however. I think the Chargers are gonna win this one, kick things off Wildcard Weekend. Houston has been slumping really, really hard ever since I don't know. I want to say like the last like month and a half or so of the season. The production has turned down on just about everywhere you look. and the Chargers are the complete opposite. They have been nothing but nothing but on an upward trajectory ever since I want to say like November or October, and I think it's going to continue. I really do. I think they'll get a nice playoff win in Jim Harbaugh's first year as head coach in LA, and yeah, I think we're going to see a Chargers Chiefs divisional round playoff game, just like the old days.
And then we're going to see a Chiefs Ravens AFC Championship game. Is what you're saying too, right? A Harbaugh and the AFC Championship game.
Well, I will say this: I would really hope that the Ravens do end up beating the Bills in that scenario. So, yeah, you got me there.
They reseed, right, in the NFL playoffs?
No,
they don't. I thought they used to. Didn't they used to?
As far as I can remember, I want to say no. It's always been whoever's the highest seed plays the lowest seed, and
that's reseeding though.
Vice versa. Is it?
Yeah.
I thought
so. Like if the Ravens would win the next round, right, and the Bills win, or no, the Ravens win and the Broncos win, then the Broncos would play the Chiefs, right, in the AFC divisional round, and then the Ravens.
All right. Yeah, my fault. Yeah. I misunderstood your. Yeah. So they do reseed. Yes, they do.
I don't like that. I don't like that at all. You shouldn't be rewarded.
You prefer a bracket?
Yeah, you get a bracket, man. Like you play the 4-5 winner. Like that's how they do it in most sports.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't be rewarded because there is an upset.
Possibly, who knows? I mean, I like the way they do it. It makes sense to me.
I just don't want the Chiefs winning. That's you know me.
That's your point here is the Chiefs should not be rewarded.
No, they shouldn't be rewarded. They get everything handed to them. Come on. we got to give them an easier matchup in the next round too.
Well, fortunately for us, they're not playing this week, so we don't have to talk about them. So that's fantastic news.
Yeah.
Everyone's always talking about the Chiefs. So we touched on Denver and Buffalo. I mean, I think we're both pretty on board with Buffalo winning that one. Packers at Eagles. Quarterbacks coming into this one with question marks. They were both injured. Jalen Hurts got hurt 2-3 weeks ago against the Commanders, had the concussion, hadn't played. And Jordan Love got hurt against the Bears this past Sunday, had an elbow injury, if I'm not mistaken. And the Eagles here with a home game, 5.5-point favorites. And is there anything about this game that smells very familiar, like last year's?
You think the Packers are going to shock the world?
I'm not saying I think they are. I'm just saying I think the possibility's there.
It definitely is there, but I think for me, this is the only game of the weekend that I think is not going to be close. I think the Eagles take care of Green Bay because the difference between the Cowboys of last year and the Eagles of this year is just the Eagles are just more well-rounded. They got a guy at
better roster
position, better roster. Yeah. They're just well-rounded. They're better coached. I think Nick Sirianni's got this team playing at a level these last 10 weeks that we haven't seen from the Eagles since they went to the Super Bowl a few years ago. Like Saquon's been phenomenal. Their offensive line is just opening up big holes for them. I don't see the Packers really stopping this Eagles offense right now. Even like I think the Eagles dropped 35 points on this team right now. I'm gonna be for real. And the Packers are just going to have to keep up pace. I think Jordan Love's going to have to, if they're going to have to win this game, he's going to have a Herculean effort. He's going to have to throw 4 or 5 touchdowns.
That's for sure.
I don't really see a scenario in which the Packers hold the Eagles to under 30 points in this game. I really don't.
Well, the Packers do have a few things going for them. I mean, they do have a top 5 defense. They did finish the season in that category, so that's impressive. I think there is something to be said about, Jalen Hurts might be shaking off some rust after missing 2 games. A.J. Brown has not been 100% healthy this year. He's nursing a knee injury. And then, I do think there just is that the Packers factor of being, they're one of the youngest teams in football. Last year, they were able to walk into the 2 seats building and light things up and move on to the next round. I'm just saying, I don't think it's as likely as it was last year because the Cowboys are a different kind of animal. But I think Philly can be got. I really do. I don't think they're the impregnable fortress that people think they are. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Nick Sirianni either in that department.
I'm not a huge Nick Sirianni fan, but I think this year he's done a great job of, after those early season struggles that they were having, just to regroup. And this team's been playing on a different level in the second half of the year. And would they win like 8 in a row, 9 in a row at one point? Like they
Something
are
like that.
like
Yeah.
they have a good game plan on how to win games. Control the clock. If you have the third and one situations, you have Jalen Hurts who can just barrel the ball forward. And I think their defense has gotten better up front with Jalen Carter. Like after Fletcher Cox left, you didn't know how the D tackles were going to really shape up. And then now you got 2 Pro Bowlers now on that defensive line with Jalen Carter and help me out here.
Jordan Davis.
Jordan Davis, right? Like those 2 guys have been fantastic. Kenyon Mitchell on the outside as well. Like this defense is stacked again, right?
Yeah.
A year ago, we were talking about them being the worst passing defense in the NFL. And then they just almost could do a complete 180 this season and have one of the best. Cooper DeJean back there as well. Like Philly, to me, I know you don't think of them as world stoppers, but I think in the NFC right now, they're the best chance of beating the Lions. Like I don't, after what Minnesota did last week, I have no faith in Minnesota taking down Detroit. Just because I think they overthink too much against a team like that. Once they verse the Lions, they just get in their own heads. I think if any team in the NFC has a chance of taking down Detroit, it's Philly.
So we'll both rock with the Eagles on that one, picking them to advance. Good with that. This one, Sunday night, I think might have the propensity for the most fireworks potentially. The Commanders and the Buccaneers, 2 okay defenses and 2 really great offenses. It's a 3-point spread. These 2 teams played week 1 with the Buccaneers. I think they won by like 3 touchdowns, maybe a little less. And I think the Bucs win this one again. And I'm not gonna lie.
Charlie, I'm going to disagree with you again here. I'm going to say the Commanders.
Wow. Okay.
Again, they're another team that's just playing really good football as of late. I think Jaden Daniels, the more reps he gets, the more plays he runs, like he's just getting more and more comfortable. And I think right now, like Tampa Bay, like they're starting to get healthy again, but they still are missing Godwin. I think that's still a huge loss in the receiving core. I think McMillan's picked up a little bit of the slack, but I think the Commanders themselves are just a team that tries to, shove the ball down your throat. They don't care. Like they're gonna run the ball, they're gonna pass the ball. They can do whatever they want right now because Jaden Daniels is just playing at such a crazy level. Especially you saw that in that Eagles game a few weeks ago when he threw for 5 touchdowns. I think Washington wins this one. I think it's going to be very close too. This one might be the hardest one to pick out of all the 5 games. Maybe Houston and LA too. I picked Houston. I think that was a hard game to pick. Both these 4 or 5 games are they're so neck and neck. Both these 2 teams are just so evenly matched.
Yeah, it really is because like I would consider their offenses about the same level. Like both teams are clicking right now offensively. They can both, like you said, run the ball. They can throw it on you. They can do they can move the ball however you'd like. When it comes to the defenses, I think Tampa Bay is just a little bit more of a step up. I think they got better pass rushers, better defensive line, better linebackers. Secondary's probably about the same. Better safeties for Tampa Bay. Like you said, this is gonna be close. This is gonna come down to a 1-possession game. Who has the ball last? And I think it's gonna be Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield advancing to the divisional round. And also, Baker's never lost in the wild card round.
He's 1-0, right?
2-0.
2-0. He won last year.
And Pittsburgh. They beat Pittsburgh when he was in Cleveland.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that game. That's why I thought it was 1-0. But he played in last year in the.
Yeah, they beat the Eagles last year in the wild card.
They beat the Eagles?
Yeah, in the wild card game last year, Monday night.
Oh, that's right. Wow, I forgot about that game.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right, 2-0 Baker. The good thing Jaden Daniels is 0-0 in the wild card round.
Yeah, exactly. So someone's picking up their first loss in the wild card round this weekend.
Yep.
So finally, moving on to the Monday Night Football wild card playoff game, which I'm actually personally a fairly large fan of. I kind of like the Monday Night playoff game. It's a little, it's something new they started the last few years. But we got the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams. Notice how I didn't say at Los Angeles because this game is going to be played in Glendale, Arizona at State Farm Stadium where the Cardinals play because of those Los Angeles wildfires, unfortunately. but going to be a neutral field. I believe I was reading something earlier today about how the Rams fans are getting first access to tickets, but you just know those Vikings fans are going to be flying into to Arizona to come fill that stadium up with a skull chance. You know what I'm saying?
I know my dad would definitely be looking into it right now. And he was saying to me, if the Vikings played Tampa Bay in the first round, and like Tampa Bay had the home field, he would have gone because like he knows some people down in Tampa Bay that he could maybe crash with for a night. So I know he was thinking about it. But the Rams, unfortunate for the Wildfires. Praying for everybody out there. Hopefully LA is
sure.
good for moving forward if we can have more events there. But the Vikings are a team, especially after last week, that worries me because Sam Darnold is very much a momentum kind of quarterback. He's a guy that when he's playing hot, he's going to play hot for you for weeks and he's going to look great. But one bad performance could kind of just throw off his whole rhythm. And you saw earlier in the year when they lost to Detroit, and was it week 4? Or week 5?
Week 4 or 5.
Yeah,
it was
the next
fairly
week they followed
early.
up, and who they played the next week? The LA Rams on Thursday or Monday Night Football,
and they lost
to the Rams. So then they went back on that huge winning streak, and they won. What was it, like 11 in a row?
They won like 9 straight or something like that.
9 or 10 in a row, and now they lose to Detroit in week 18. And who are they playing the next week? The LA Rams and Matt Stafford.
It is kind of funny how it works out, right?
Right, like you have a chance to sort of right the wrongs, but right now they're wrong in the wrongs again. The team last week just looked like very beatable, right? They had so many chinks in that armor. The Brian Flores defense that everybody was raving about and saying like they're playing at such a high level. I think they just get picked apart once they go up against an experienced quarterback. Like when Jared Goff and Matt Stafford, guys who have read defenses for the last close to a decade, have that kind of experience, and Matt Stafford's been like 15 years. Like they know how to read a blitz. They know how to pick it up. They know how to get the ball out quick, and that's what the Lions did last week. And I think if LA wants to win this game, they're gonna have to pick up that same game plan. On the other side of things, I think the Vikings are just mad. They are angry that they lost that 1 seed, and now they're gonna have to play a road playoff game in LA across the country. Kevin O'Connell, is a great head coach. He's going to get this team fired up. I think they're going to come out angry, but they got to control that anger. They can't let themselves get too heated and commit a bunch of stupid penalties and things like that give the Rams better field position. They need to play smart. They need to play physical. They need to play mad, and if they want to win this game, I'm going to give Minnesota the W this week. I think they beat LA on the road. I think they win last second field goal. It's going to be a close one, but I would like to see this team rebound because I think they have a very good chance of making a run. They just need to stay out of their own heads and play the game that they like to play.
I'm picking against you, and I have to apologize to Mr. Cafone out there if he's listening. I'm picking his Vikings to take the L against the Rams. For the reasons you described, Ant, it's just Stafford and McVay just seem to have that kind of special sauce when it comes to taking down, I don't know, more talented opponents. It's just because they've been around so long and they've seen so much together with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. I know the defense isn't as good as it's been in years past, but it just feels like this Vikings team it's the most Vikings thing ever to go 14-3, not win the division, and then get one and done in the playoffs. And I just think that's where this direction is headed. I don't know if Sam Darnold's going to be able to play the way he had before that Detroit game. I mean, he looked so bad against the Lions. He was missing everything, throwing high. It was just, I don't know if it's enough time for him to turn it around and get it fixed up for this game here out in Arizona. And I do think it's going to be the Rams who are going to be getting the win here. I think they'll be able to do enough defensively to keep the Vikings slowed down. And then, like you said, Matt Stafford has seen it before. He could just pick this defense apart. And they, like you said, beat him in the regular season. And if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Puka Nacua out for that game that they won?
It was week 5, I think, that game.
Yeah.
Because the Vikings went 2-2 or 3-2 to start the year off. I think it was week 5 that game because they were 3-1 because because they were 3-0, then lost to Detroit, and then lost to LA, and went 3-2. So it was week 5. Was Puka out by week 5? That's the question.
That is the question. It might have been.
It might have been a week.
It was his first.
later.
It was his first game back, actually, after getting hurt week 1.
Yes. So Puka was available in that game.
Yes, he was. 7 catches for 100 yards.
Was he available? Yeah, he had a great game.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry, but I think I'm rocking with the Rams. It's going to be a rematch again from last year's playoffs.
Well, also,
week 1,
yeah.
Lions Rams in the divisional round. Stafford back to Detroit.
Oh my God, he can't escape that place.
Mm-mm.
But I will say this about Minnesota. This week, regardless of the outcome, it's a win-win. Because if you win, then you're still playing playoff football. You got a big win. You're gonna keep moving on. You're gonna probably play Detroit one more time, and you see what you still have in Sam Darnold. If you lose, makes your quarterback decision a lot easier in the offseason.
It's JJ McCarthy time.
All right. Yeah, we could sell Sam. We don't need to pay him all this money because we know what he does in big games now. We can just move on with JJ and not have to worry about it. We have a rookie deal, and then we can just invest in other areas of our team. So regardless of the outcome, even though the Vikings are a 14-win team and they're thinking Super Bowl and everything like that, even if you lose, you get a better picture of what this team is going to be looking like moving forward.
You have so much talent. You have one of the best head coaches in football.
One of the best GMs.
You just got to get you just got to get JJ McCarthy, moving along in his development, and you'll be set for a long time.
Exactly. So that's what I'll say on the Vikings before we close.
Yeah. So looks like the only things we differentiated on were I have the Rams, you have the Vikings,
Mm-hmm.
I got the Bucks, you got the Commanders, and then everything else.
Actually,
no, I had the Chargers. Yeah. So
yeah.
We'll get Mazz's picks too, and we'll when we reconvene next week, we'll compare and contrast who got what right, who got what wrong. But in the meantime, Ant, fun episode today. It was a grand old time.
This was a really good episode today, Charlie. I'm glad that we were able to hop on here. We're hoping Mazz can get back next week. We have him
big time, yeah, for sure,
for that one, and we're hoping everything's okay with his family. And we're praying for you, Mazz. We're praying for you, brother.
Yes, sir. Mazz, hope to see you next week. And if you're watching right now, you made it this far. I hope we see you next week. So thanks for watching. And